And for more on Peranakan culture, we turn to Lim Tai Wei. He's a senior lecturer at the Singapore Institute of Management. Thank you for joining us. So who are Peranakans and what distinguishes the Peranakans of the past from those in present day?
Okay, the Peranakans are mainly descendants of Chinese migrants that went to Southeast Asia sometime after the 15th century or the Ming Dynasty in China. And many of them married local people from especially Malay people as well as Batak people from Sumatra. And as a result, they have a hybrid culture and also very colorful diversity in their lifestyles. And the original Peranakans, they speak a patois of Malay. So there's a generous integration of Hokkien language from China, from the Fujian province, with the Malay language. And they also cook specific dishes that reflect the culture. These dishes were sort of passed down from generation to generation, from the matriarchs to the younger women within the family. They would observe certain customs, for example, the use of porcelain, which has certain stylized designs that are applicable only to Peranakan porcelain ware. Now, what distinguishes past Peranakans from modern Peranakans? Well, economists have analyzed the history of the Peranakans, and they have said that since the Great Depression in 1929, but particularly in the 1930s, as well as after the Second World War, Peranakan culture has somewhat faded from the scene because of the fact that these events created some form of economic disruptions. And so the lavish as well as colorful lifestyles of the Peranakan were sort of affected. And as a result, large numbers of Peranakans were sort of integrated into mainstream Chinese society. And so as modernization took place, a lot of these traditional rituals and also traditional lifestyles and practices sort of faded away from the scene. Now, some modern Peranakans are trying to bring back the tradition. And so you can see this in popular culture through TV programs. And you can also see this in culinary culture through the preservation of Peranakan dishes in restaurants as well as in households.
Tell us about Chinese influence in Peranakan culture. You mentioned the fear of this fading away, but what about the Chinese influence?
Okay, let's take an example of a material artifact that shows this influence, which is the porcelain culture that your program has also mentioned. Now, a lot of these porcelains were made in China, in the porcelain making region of Jingdezhen. These porcelains were made according to specifications that were made by Peranakan clients. So actually the designs as well as the colors used on the original Jingdezhen porcelain is quite stylized and specifically Peranakan. And so in this way you can see a fusion of Peranakan taste on the foundations of Chinese Jingdezhen porcelain culture. And some of these porcelain material artifacts were actually painted in places like Canton and Hong Kong, painted according to the needs of the Peranakan clients. So this is a good example of fusion between Peranakan taste as well as traditional Chinese culture like Jingdezhen porcelain making culture.
Lim Tai Wei in Singapore, thank you so much for talking to us.